Mine is too. I didn't tell anybody about this live, but I figure I'd say hey to the audience, and I would go live because Jacob is a professional at that. And both Jacob Harkey and I attended the recent development of the Chrissy Bixler hearing. So a lot of really interesting information. And Jacob, I've been leaning on very, very heavily because he really knows the legalese like the back of his hand. So he's attended a bunch of previous motions, previous trials. So yeah, why don't you give me a quick rundown? It seems like largely the defense was successful, kind of got their way. So what's your kind of viewpoint on it?
So to give a little bit of background for what we attended today. So today is May 29th, 2024, and we attended a hearing, as Dodge said, in the Bixler v. Scientology case. And this Bixler v. Scientology case was initially filed in 2019 over the fair game harassment and stalking that the victims of Danny Masterson have experienced since coming forward about the abuse that they've experienced at the hands of Danny Masterson. Now, the case was put on hold for a few years while Danny Masterson's criminal case was ongoing. But after Danny Masterson was convicted in May of 2023, this case was opened back up and hearings have resumed again. So what today was actually scheduled to be ended up being a little bit different than what today ended up actually being.
Yes.
So today was scheduled as a hearing on a motion for leave, meaning that the plaintiffs had filed a motion for leave so that they could have time to conduct discovery for their second amended complaint. And really, they wanted for the allegations being put forth in their second amended complaint to be brought officially into the lawsuit. And that includes RICO charges, which are making the case that Scientology is a criminal organization that has conspired to stalk and harass the victims as they have, as well as adding in an additional plaintiff who was a past bad acts witness in the Danny Masterson criminal case. Now, we didn't end up getting to that today.
And real quick, the plaintiff, is she that actress?
Trisha Vesey.
Yes. So that's the interesting part about this case is because there was so much strength in the conviction of Danny Masterson, Bixler felt like there was pretty understandably and effectively that there were all these extra added points, added show of causes that she could kind of tack on. So she, and was sexual battery as well supposed to be added in that specific lawsuit?
Yes, actually, thank you for bringing that up. So initially, the lawsuit did not actually include any kind of SA as a cause of action. In the second amended complaint, which has been filed since the conclusion of the criminal trial, that has the allegations of sexual abuse have been more explicitly added into the second amended complaint. But like I said, we didn't end up hearing much about that today, and the reason is because at the last hearing in this case, had to do with an anti-SLAPP motion that the defense had filed. So to back up and give a little bit of context about that, SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation, and the idea there is that a SLAPP lawsuit is a frivolous lawsuit that's just being filed to silence someone. So Scientology, by filing an anti-SLAPP motion against 3 of the 5 causes of action from the initial complaint in this lawsuit, they're alleging that the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, the Jane Does, are just trying to silence Scientology, and that's why Scientology filed their anti-SLAPP motion. It is very ironic that Scientology is the one filing that motion. But anyway, at the last hearing before today, the judge ruled in favor of the plaintiffs and did not strike any of the causes of action that Scientology wanted struck. And the judge predicted accurately at the last hearing that because the defense would have 60 days to appeal the judge's ruling on the anti-SLAPP motion, the judge expected that they were going to do that, and 60 days, which they did. Just in the last couple of days, the Church of Scientology did in fact file their appeal. So what ended up happening today was actually resolved fairly quickly, and the resolution is that while the defense is taking their time to appeal this motion, to appeal the judge's ruling from the last hearing, the case will be put on hold, and that means that we will not likely be hearing any updates or additional hearings in this case for a year.
And so that literally nothing. So the expectation is, at least in the fall of 2025, the full trial would be underway. All the preliminary motions would be taken care of. All of the back and forth as to what could be considered in this lawsuit, what couldn't be considered, all of that would have essentially been resolved by September, October of 2025. Now, it is not until the spring of 2025 where even a motion, and Jacob, when somebody issues a motion, preliminary motions, or they want to make an appeal, you have to wait a year for that to happen. But then how long does that take, do you think, until the actual trial starts?
That's a good question. I mean, keep in mind, at this point, this lawsuit was initially filed in 2019, and it's 2024.
Now, keep in mind, it was strengthened because of the Masterson conviction.
True.
But even if, right.
Yeah, exactly. The criminal trial was a part of the reason that the case was on hold for a few years. But considering how much time has already gone by, and now the fact that the trial was scheduled for over a year from now, and now it's looking like it's going to get pushed back even further.
Right.
When we can expect it to actually happen, I don't know.
Probably 2026 would be my guess. Would be just off the top of my head, having been a local news anchor, done reports of court and the process. My guess is the actual tangible part of the trial, where all of the details will come in. My guess is that won't start until probably February, March, April 2026. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was something to look on the horizon, with plaintiffs being added. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the husband of one of the Jane Does, I believe it's Bixler, the gentleman Mars Volta in the group, he's being added. Does that mean the story?
He actually already
he was
is a
already there.
plaintiff.
I was confused about.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's already been there. So to look out for that, I wonder, is the dog story going to be one of the most fascinating parts of the trial, where him and his wife's dog was poisoned? Is pretty obvious. The dog found this raw meat. Inside this raw meat was rat poison. Inside the backyard. That was locked, and somehow this raw meat was hanging out there. And not only that, but he usually was attendant to his dog, so it was literally in the 20 minutes that it just appeared, because he didn't see anything before, where this dog consumed this food that magically appeared. So I wonder, do you think that's going to be? I think that's going to be a press-worthy, wild story once that comes out again in detail.
I definitely think so, and it's not even the first example that I've heard of people who are criticizing Scientology or going after Scientology having their pets attacked in some fashion.
Yep.
But yeah, I have no doubt that that's going to be a press-worthy story as this lawsuit does keep moving, which will unfortunately take a little bit longer. Yeah,
yes,
longer than we anticipated.
And the other thing I'm curious about, one of the big things is one of the Jane Does said she got a call from Danny Masterson's publicist, saying this is going to get really bad for your family. The argument is, with the publicist who has the onus on some of the misdeeds here, Scientology is trying to claim that she, even though she has been a Scientologist, that she is not connected with Scientology in any single way, shape, or form. Do you think the examination of her will be a focal point of this trial in her involvement with Scientology? Or do you think Scientology will kind of be successful in getting the court to say she's her and she's not with us?
Well, I think that Scientology is going to do everything that they can to distance themselves from any kind of allegations that they are having agents do their dirty work for them. But I think that that's going to be something that the plaintiffs are looking to prove, that by looking at similar patterns of behavior and similar threats, or I don't know if threats is even the best word to be given, but what you described, saying things are going to get bad for your family, I think it's fair to say that that's a threat.
Yeah.
By seeing similar instances under such similar circumstances and for such similar reasons, all following the women coming forward about the abuse that they experienced from Danny Masterson, I think it's all very relevant. I think it's definitely going to be brought up, and I think that Scientology is definitely going to argue against it, which is how these things tend to go.
Yes. And the last thing I want to ask you about, again, because everybody's saying you should go to law school. I agree. That's
the goal.
Yeah, I was going to do a separate video and say also check out Jacob's, because he could probably even explain it in a more clear manner. But we're doing this together, so I'm glad about that. So with the Jane Doe one, you want to explain there was a failure to appear on Jane Doe one's case because she's in transition of the legal team. So she got an OSC. So do you think
or
that
her attorney did anyway?
Right, her attorney. Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Her attorney got an OSC. Do you think there's any truth to any rumors that her legal team felt a little put upon or felt it was too much? Or in the world of law, these things law teams cycle through a dime or dozen anyway. But I've heard that.
The truth is, regarding the specifics of why her attorney was not there today, I really don't know the details
yeah,
there.
Of course.
But just to give everybody a little bit of context about what we're talking about. So there was only one attorney who was present in court today for the plaintiffs, and that was John Cusser. And he has not been officially representing all of the plaintiffs. Jane Doe 1 has had a separate attorney from the Brad Edwards and Brittany Henderson firm, and it was briefly explained by John Cusser, who was representing the other plaintiffs in court today, that her previous attorney will no longer be representing her, and he was being very careful about what he said because she's not officially, or he's not officially her attorney at this point. But it's based on the way that he was talking, it sounded like
he will be.
It sounded like he likely will be. And the judge indicated that is something that they can continue to work out over the next year as they're waiting for the next next actual hearing to come, which won't be for a while. The judge kind of mentioned that there won't be additional adversarial correspondence during this time that the defense is filing their appeal based on the judge's ruling on the anti-SLAPP from the last hearing, but mentioned that non-adversarial correspondence can continue to happen, and non-adversarial correspondence can include questions of representation. So I'm expecting that we'll hear sometime that John Cusser is bringing on Jane Doe 1 and representing her as well. But in the meantime, the judge did say today that because her initial attorney was not here today, that he will issue an OSC, which, as I understand, stands for Order to Show Cause.
Yes.
And he'll have 30 days to respond to that. So that was really the only other big newsworthy thing that happened. It was a fairly quick hearing today.
Very quick. Yeah, I'm glad Jacob's here. We're spending more time talking about this than the actual length of the hearing. But you know this like the back of your hand, so it's important. And I guess the last question is, for me, what I'm curious about generally, even though, sorry guys, I'm blocking this. Even though the trial is delayed significantly, is this does the plaintiff's case look any weaker than it did before this hearing? I don't think so. The can is kicked down the road, but Scientology did not get any actual tangible victories. Everybody expected them to make the appeal. Everybody expected this to happen. Now that whole year process is like crazy, so that might have been a bummer. But other than that, does the plaintiff's case look weakened? Does the defense case look strengthened? Or is it the same as it ever was?
I wouldn't say that the plaintiff's case looks weakened, and I think that Scientology is always going to pull out as many delay tactics as they can, which, to be real, most wealthy corporations or individuals being sued are going to take any opportunity that they can to delay. But I do think that it's important to keep in mind that this case did overcome a hurdle that all civil lawsuits against Scientology have been faced with, which is the arbitration hurdle.
Yes, the religious arbitration, huge.
So
huge. I forgot about that.
So with this case, with the initial judge who was initially overseeing the case, Scientology did what they do, and they pulled out a contract that the Jane Does had signed while they were members of the church, stating that they would never sue the church, they would take any grievances handle them internally with internal religious arbitration, and the judge ruled that a contract is a contract. You signed that you wouldn't sue, so the case is being forced into arbitration. Well, the Jane Does in this case appealed, and an appeals court ruled in their favor to revive the lawsuit, ruling that because the actions that they were suing for are things that happened to them after they left the church, they shouldn't be bound to that contract that they signed while they were in the church.
They were members of the religious community. They didn't agree to it.
Which is a great thing that the appeals court ruled in their favor. That revived the lawsuit. And so, yes, it is a bummer that we're going to have to wait a year for another hearing to hear what's going to happen next in this case. But I do think that it's important to remember that because this case has overcome that hurdle, that's huge. And it's going to take time. The wheels of justice do move slowly, but I wouldn't say that I think that the plaintiff's case looks weaker after today.
No, I don't think so at all. That's what I was asking. I mean, right. It does, and that's the other thing I was curious about too. Wasn't there a separate lawsuit which did get screwed over by religious arbitration? I believe it was something against Miscavige out this time in Florida.
Yeah, so there's the Baxter v. Miscavige case, which is the case being filed by 3 Australian former Sea Org members. It's Valeska Paris, and then Gawain and Laura Baxter. And all 3 of them were brought to the U.S. and brought into the Sea Org from Australia on R1, I think it's R1 is what they're called, but religious visas. And so they're suing for labor trafficking. And they did their legal teams did some impressive work a couple of years ago to prove all of the efforts that they had made to serve Miscavige, eventually getting the judge to rule that Miscavige has been served. But unfortunately, it was shortly after that the judge did force the case into religious arbitration, which is where it's at now.
But but I will say this, the mere continuation of this trial, and you have to thank Chrissy for this, could potentially set finally a precedent for opening the floodgates of future Scientology lawsuits, because now there is a precedent to overrule the religious arbitration. Now, of course, it's always going to be tough if somebody was currently a member of the Church of Scientology, but with all of that, you know, if you're 17 and you're dealing with this, could you have not consented to religious arbitration? If you have this precedent, they were, well, you know, the Jane Does weren't in Scientology. Can you make the same argument? Was a child sort of forced against their will? So there's a lot of different things in the future where it's going to be, I think, a hell of a lot easier and a hell of a lot quicker to sue Scientology. So I think this is going to be a successful case. Both of us are mildly bummed out, but have expected the trial to get delayed, or even the preliminary motions to get delayed an entire year. But already, this case has broken down a lot of bureaucratic barriers. So now it's much easier to hit Scientology in the arsenal. So that would be the main takeaway, I'd say. The dynamics have changed. And the religious arbitration, not only does this set a precedent for Scientology, but it probably sets a precedent for LDS, for Jehovah's Witnesses, for Hasidic Jewish people. I mean, this could be a really big, almost Supreme Court-like, not that it is Supreme Court, but almost Supreme Court-like precedent.
Yeah, and hey, I'd love to see all these cases move forward, and I'd love to see the plaintiffs get justice in all of them. So, yeah, I hope that you're right. I hope that we do get to see all of that.
Me too. And
I will also point out Lexi Evans pointed out in the chat, who is the lady, she was on the Aftermath. She has amazing curling hair. I'm blanking on her name. Didn't her case get screwed? I think you're talking about Valerie Haney, and yes, you are right. So Valerie Haney, she's another one who sued the church in Los Angeles, and she had her case derailed into religious arbitration. And she actually has recently, in the last year, gone through the arbitration process, which is really not an arbitration process because Scientology has all of the power. They stack all the cards against you. You have to have only Scientologists in good standing as the arbitrators. So it's obviously biased. You're not allowed to have an attorney. You're not allowed to have your phone. So yes, thank you for bringing that up, Lexi. That was a real bummer to see what the outcome of that case has been lately.
Well, here's a fun question that I had. How many trials are there altogether going on at once? 4? Having to do with Scientology?
There's Bixler v. Scientology. There's Jane Doe v. Religious Technology Center. There's Leah Remini v. Scientology. There's Baxter v. Scientology in Florida. And then, of course, there is also the Haney v. Scientology case. I'm not totally sure exactly what the case of Valerie Haney's suit is right now. If I understand correctly, I think that after she went through the arbitration with Scientology, she had an opportunity for her attorneys to submit a filing about the outcome of. To be honest, I'm a little bit hesitant to say too much about it because I'm just not sure what the current whereabouts of that lawsuit are. But that's something that I will be sure to keep an eye on to know what the current standing is. But yeah, 4 to 5, including all of those.
Hardcore. and you'll be there for all of them. There is something on the 4th. I guess we will both go to, is my assumption, if it still is on the 4th.
Yeah, these hearings do tend to get moved around quite a bit,
Yes.
but I will make sure to look again at my calendar and make sure that I know what to expect on that day, because hey, if I have an opportunity to come back to the courthouse and see those Scientology attorneys in action trying to derail justice again, I will be sure to be keeping an eye on it.
Hell yeah. And then and just to double check, is that one the one with the forced marriage?
I believe so.
Yes.
I'm hesitant to confirm with confidence because
and you're not covering it today, so
yeah.
There'll be time to double check. I just want to say, guys who are watching me, subscribe to Jacob Harkey, which is just your name. It's like mine,
That's right?
It's
yeah.
just Jacob Harkey.
And Dodge Landisman is here. If you are not already subscribed to Dodge, make sure that you check out Dodge Landisman on YouTube.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I do see folks saying in the chat, Jacob, they have not finished the arbitration yet. Yeah, I won't say anything with confidence about what the current status of Valerie Haney's case is, because I do want to make sure that I don't get anything wrong there. So I will commit to keeping an eye on that and making sure that I do get my facts straight on that one. But in the meantime, just another day at the courthouse. We'll be waiting to hear more updates as they come, and we'll share more updates as they come. Anything else from you before we wrap up for today?
No, I think that's it. And you might be getting too much of us. I don't know, but stay tuned for and check out Growing Up Scientology.
Yes, yes,
If
absolutely.
you can't get enough of us, you will get more, whether you like it or not.
Totally. And I do see Lexi Evans, one more thing before I go, says, please update us on your case as well.
Yeah.
I've got court on July 9th. I'm gonna refrain from saying too much about that at this time, just because of the nature of the legal system. Anything you say can and will be used against you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can feel free to head to the community tab on my YouTube page, and you'll be able to see the information that I have shared publicly. But hopefully I'll be able to share an update sooner rather than later, and hopefully I'll be able to share good news. But in the meantime, as Dodge said, we may be chatting with Aaron from Growing Up in Scientology at some point later today. But in the meantime, thank you to everybody who has tuned in, and we will be sure to update you all again soon. All right, stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
We'll talk to
Take
you guys
care.
soon.
Bye-bye.